Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this week's update from your broker regarding some contractual or issues that we're seeing out in the marketplace right now. The goal of this is to bring you some updated information on a regular basis. So today, our Broker Minute is going to be covering the as-is paragraph, which is located in Section 8 of the contract and one of the options that a buyer can choose as it relates to inspections and repairs on the property. The reason we're bringing this up is because a lot of questions has come up is what happens if we have an as-is contract and the buyer has also selected for this to be contingent on the CO 100. And what happens there is you actually create a contradiction and it is no longer an as-is contract. So it's important that we know that. So let's jump into the information so we can take a look at this. As you know, in paragraph 8, the last selection, or excuse me, section 8, the last selection that we have for the buyer is to proceed with this contract as is. What this means is that you have the ability to have the property inspected. You can have it inspected by anybody, with anyone, whatever that may look like. However, there is no obligation by the seller to make any repairs for anything that you discover during the inspection as the buyer. And in addition to that, the buyer cannot terminate the contract based on what you find in the inspection. So it's very important you know that if your buyer is choosing as is, they cannot get out of the contract based on the property condition. So it's safe to say that basically go as conservative as possible in explaining to your buyers that you want to use as is if your intent is to bulldoze the property and build on the raw land. Now what is happening is we've had a couple contracts, or I should say offers, that have come in where the as is paragraph is selected, and in addition to that, they have selected the first option in section 11, which is that it is contingent on either the buyer or the seller having a CO 100 inspection paid for by either the buyer and seller. The challenge with that is you've now added a contingency. And what that does is it negates the as-is portion of the contract that's been selected. What that means for your buyer is great, they have a way to get out. What that means for your seller is they're now put in a position where the buyer can be released from the contract. Now it's important to understand that it's in no situation, repair procedure, due diligence, or as is a seller forced to make any repairs. So if you do select the both of these and you have, or I select as is as well as this one in here, what basically happens at that point is you've opened up this contingency or this option for the buyer right here, which basically says if the seller does not make repairs, then the buyer can then exercise their option to terminate their contract as long as they do it in a timely manner based on these paragraphs. So just important to know that at the end of the day, if the intention, as we've always said, is conflict only arises when there's a difference in expectations, right? So the important part is early on is to understand the intention. If the intention was for the buyer to be purchasing an as-is contract because they want a strong contract, and if you're looking at it from the buyer side and you know the seller's intention was they were not going to do any repairs, have that conversation ahead of time and don't select both of these options, because if you select both of these options, the intention of the buyer not getting out of the contract is no longer there, because the seller can say, no, I'm not going to do the work, and they could exercise that right. So that's it for today. Super exciting, but definitely a good one to know. If you guys have any questions, as always, give me a call, shoot me an email. Glad to help in any way. Have a great week, happy selling, and best of luck to you. Take care.